Yo, what's up guys? Today I want to talk about one of the best Spiritborn leveling builds for Diablo 4 Season 11, and it is a full Poison Centipede build. Now, coming into Season 11, there are two big changes to the game. One, they are making the enemies stronger and harder, and two, they are adding capstone dungeons, which means at certain points you will need to go and defeat these challenging dungeons to progress. Doing so will get you skill points and let you go into the next tier. So having the right build is really important, and that is where the Poison Centipede build comes in. Now, this was one of the best leveling builds in the last few seasons, and it just keeps getting stronger. The build has seen no real nerfs since the last season, but it has seen some significant buffs. Centipede has seen its damage increase from the total poison it can put out from 70% to 160%, and then things like Rushing Claw have had a just straight double buff from 80 to 160. So this build is looking absolutely solid for Season 11. Now, how does it work? You just run in, you dash around with Rushing Claw as fast as possible, you apply tons of poisons, you pop these big centipedes out of the ground, and everything melts. The stronger the enemies are, the more HP they have, the more elites there are, the better this build performs because poison damage works over time. So coming into Season 11 with these new mechanics, this is going to absolutely excel. So let's get straight into the build. Okay, on the skill tree from the top, we want to start with our basic skill, Withering Fist. Now, Withering Fist, you go 1 point into here, and then you get 1 point into Enhanced. This has two uses. One, this gives us 1 Rigor Regen per nearby enemy, so as you're starting to level and you're struggling with Vigor, this is a very good way to just get it back really quickly. And then this also gives us another way to dash around while we're like building out our Rushing Claw build. So on our main core ability, we want to get this one here, Stinger. This is a very powerful damage that, does damage, poison damage to everything around us. And if it's a vulnerable enemy, it heals you. Really good, makes enemies vulnerable. 5 points into this, 1 point into this, 60% of base damage as poison, and then 1 point into advantageous. If it hits vulnerable, you heal. If you are healthy, makes enemies vulnerable. So two really good things here. And this cluster, I would get this really early. Normally, I would recommend going for like your main abilities first, but these passives, you should get them ASAP. 1 point gets you both of these, so you can go 3 points into Excursion. Core skills cost 9% more vigor, but 15% more damage. This is going to be your main source of damage early on, so worth getting. Then you want to get 3 points into Velocity, 3 vigor per second while moving. This is a very fast, very mobile build. You'll be dashing all around the screen. You're going to feel that. Okay, on the next section, we go 1 point into Focal Point, 3 points into Apex for increased damage against vulnerable enemies. No points taken here. Next section, we only take 1 defensive. We take Scourge, which is a good poison damage over time ability. 5 points into here, 1 point into Enhanced, and 1 point into Reinforced. This is 60% of your max vigor regens over 6 seconds. And then again here, we go casting a defensive skill, gives 30 vigor. So this is just a massive source of vigor regen. Combined with this as well, you're going to really start to feel the vigor regen by this point. And I would say here is where it starts to feel comfy. And then here is where it starts to pop off. You want to take this as a priority. Rushing Claw. This is your dash around the screen, super mobile, gets you out of trouble, gets you into big packs. 1 point, 1 point into Enhanced, and 1 point into Invasive. And the way this works is if you have Ferocity, it will consume the Ferocity to reset your charges of Rushing Claw. Meaning, if you can get your Ferocity up, which is there's ways to build that and we'll talk about it. You increase your attack speed by 5% when you have Ferocity. You use that, and then you can just dash around the screen more and have almost infinite uses of Rushing Claw. You take 3 points into Vehemence. Potency skills have increased damage, but have increased cooldowns. You take these passives here, Ravenous, increased damage. You take Oppressive, you deal 12% increased damage to crowd-controlled enemies, and we've already said we have like Fears, Slows, all that stuff. And then we take this a big ability here, the Touch ability, strike an enemy and infect them, dealing damage over 9 seconds. When it expires, a swarm hatches and spreads. This is when it starts to feel like the poison starts ramping up. Take 1 point into Enhanced and 1 point into Invasive. It bursts every second, applying base poison damage. And then you can take this thing here. Now, this has changed in Season 11. So at the time I'm recording this, kind of ignore what this says, but this is going to turn into a damage increase. So you want a 3 out of 3 this node here. Then coming down into here, our ultimate, and of course we go for the Devourer, the big centipede, comes out the ground, does poison in a big line, really cool ability, really good damage. This fires blobs out from the side of it. And then this one here, if a non-boss enemy becomes poisoned, they will go down instantly, unleashing a Pestilent Swarm. And you can see we now have multiple ways to get out Pestilent Swarms, which you'll see more when we get into like the uniques, the legendary aspects. Then for the key passive, we would get this here. Noxious Resonance. Your crit strikes cause your poison to burst, dealing 300% of the total poison instantly to them, and then to surrounding enemies. This is good because if you're fighting bosses, cool. If you're fighting elites, cool. But when you're fighting like the white mobs, the trash mobs, maybe you don't want to wait for that poison damage to build up. This bursts it. This helps you take down, when you think of poison, you think slow damage over time. This turns that into a more bursty, high damage, high clear speed build. And then here, you just want to take these, you're aiming to 3 out of 3, this one, and when you have the points, this one. But you want to be basically going for this one because it gives you, every time you cast an ultimate, you get increased damage to elites. Up here, every time you defeat an enemy with an ultimate skill, you gain a stack of supremacy, which gives you a attack damage. And then down here, you've got, upon casting an ultimate skill, you reset the cooldowns of your other abilities, which means lots of these are very long cooldowns. You see this has got like, 15 seconds. This one has 12 seconds. As we use this, you pop your ultimate, these will start to reset, meaning you're not waiting on cooldowns as much. So yeah, that's the build. This has been super, super strong season after season, and it just keeps getting stronger. Okay, now for the Spirit Hall. So on the Spirit Hall, this has had a bit of a rework, a bit of a buff coming into season 11. And what does that mean? The basic change is the poison damage has gone to 8 seconds instead of 6. So you're getting damage over a longer period, which is better for like bigger monsters, more like elites, tougher bosses. And then this damage increase has gone to 160%. So you're getting a lot more damage and it's over a longer time, which is kind of going to work into the fact that the mobs are a bit more chunky this season. So if you've never played a Spiritborn before, the way this works is you pick 2 choices here. You pick a main and you pick a secondary. The main will change all of your abilities to be that ability. So if we go centipede, all of our abilities become centipede. So for example, we have here Rushing Claw. This is a Jaguar ability. And you can see now at the end in blue, it has the centipede tag. So now all of our abilities are centipede, which doesn't do a great deal in terms of changing tags. You know, you could go for something like gorilla and then all of them would be gorilla skills and you could get all of the things like that. But the buffs we get from being centipede are just so strong and they work so well into the build. It makes no sense picking anything else. It's just too good to not take. The second one just gives us some sort of buff. And the buff we go for is the Jaguar, where we get 1 extra max ferocity stack, and we gain 1 stack of ferocity whenever we defeat an enemy or damage a boss. Why is that good? Well, you can hover over it or you can't. In the thing, you can hover over it, and ferocity is basically attack speed. And attack speed that just ramps up the more stacks of ferocity you have. But when we use our Jaguar, when we use our Rushing Claw Jaguar ability, using Rushing Claw's last charge will refill 4 charges by consuming 4 stacks of ferocity. So that makes sure we always have that option. We get attack speed when we don't use it. When we do use it, we gain an instant recharge on Rushing Claw. So it's a perfect combination. That's the Spirit Hall. There's not really anything I would change here, and it will work really well this season. Okay, now let's talk about the gear, the tempering, all that stuff. There's been some changes coming into this season, so let's get into it. So first up, we'll talk aspects. So obviously, I always try and say this is a leveling build. Do not stress if you can't find any of these aspects. The build works fine with the basics, just the skill tree, and you're good to go. You don't need any of these to make the build work, but everything you find, everything that you can extract and put on your gear will make you stronger. So you don't have to temper all the time. You don't have to constantly be updating these legendary aspects. But if you're about to go to a capstone dungeon, you're feeling a little underpowered, start tuning up with some of these changes and you'll really feel it. So I'm just going to go top to bottom on both sides. Helmet, aspect of the protector, just gives you a barrier, great for defenses. This build does need a few defenses when coming into some of the tougher things. Here you go, Scourge, you get the medicine impact. Scourge continuously affects enemies around you for 9 seconds. That's when you see like the big green Scourge all the time. Aspect of infestation, when you look at it, centipede skills have a chance to spawn a swarm. Swarms now deal 100% of their base damage as poison. Then we go for the duelist. Max ferocity increased by up to 5. We've spoke loads about ferocity. Even if you ignore what it does to Rushing Claw, this is pure attack speed bonus, so it's worth getting. Then we go for the shared misery. When you hit a crowd controlled enemy, there's a chance for that effect to spread. And as you've seen, we have lots of stuff in the skill tree that gives us more damage to crowd controlled enemies. On the weapon, you go for aspect of the pestilence. Stinger swarms a swarm at its location, which deals some of the Stinger's base damage per hit. Swarms now last 50% longer and spiral outwards. I would say this is like your number one. This is like the one thing, if you find it, you'll really, really feel it. On the amulet, aspect of binding morass. If you're new to Diablo, by the way, where you put things on your weapon, you gain a 200% bonus to the effect of the aspect. And on your amulet, you gain a 150% increase. So these are like your 2 most important slots. We go for binding morass on the amulet. Close enemies or those you deal indirect damage to are slowed, and you deal increased damage to slowed enemies. Slow is a crowd control, which means they also take all the crowd control bonuses as well. On the rings, I'd go for Insatiable. Kills extend the duration of the touch ability at the swarm by 0.2. When a swarm is replaced early or it bursts, you deal extra damage. And then you go for Rip and Tear. Rushing Claw deals increased damage and is empowered based on how many charges it has when you cast it. I wouldn't say this is like super important, but you do feel it. You've got the heal if it's on one charge. You've got the guarantee to overpower, which is not that good. You've got the guarantee to critically strike, which is really good because we have things that trigger from crits. And then we have strikes initial time on 4. The 1 and 3 is really going to help you out. You're gonna feel the 2 and 4. Either way, these are the aspects I would recommend to try and get while leveling. Okay, now let's talk about stats and tempering. So while leveling, don't stress too much about stats, but here's what you want to be looking for. I've done every single item if you want to go through this yourself, but basically anywhere you can get ranks is going to give you the biggest increase in damage. Ranks to the touch ability on your helmet, ranks to Scourge on your chest piece. You've got ranks to Stinger on the gloves, and then you can get ranks to passive skills on your amulet, like ranks to oppressive, things like that, like your passive abilities. So that'd be like the main thing I'd go for. And then you just want to go for everything else: resistances, armor, life, cooldown reduction, attack speed. On your thing, you get like vulnerable damage, crit strike, dex, anything, that kind of thing is going to be good for you. When it comes to the tempering, we now only temper a single aspect per, we do a single temper per item. We don't do 2 tempers. So what would we be going for? I'd go for utility everywhere you can get it. All of these, I would go for utility tempers, and I would go for size increases on Stinger and Scourge. So the Stinger is like a round circle. That's our core ability that we can just press on repeat. And then the Scourge is the big centipede type ability that has a like 15 or 12 second cooldown. So I would try and get the size of those up with those tempers, all of these tempers. And then I would go for centipede damage on offensive temper. And then on your weapon, I would go for primary centipede spirit hall damage. That means that the big buff we get to our centipede damage on our spirit hall choice is increased significantly if you get a temper on your two-handed weapon. That's about it, really. You can get like Devour, a cooldown reduction. You can get that on your amulets if you want. But generally, all of your jewelry. But that's pretty much how I'd be going. Like I say, you can blast max level so fast in this game. I wouldn't spend too long tweaking your gear. But if you do want to go and do the capstones a little bit earlier, or if you're struggling on the capstones, hopefully this helps you out. Okay, and after Season 11 powers, the Divine powers, I'm going to be honest, when we're talking about builds and how much they add to the build, they're kind of rubbish. They don't really do much. They are more for sourcing out content. So you can see here, you can have it so that, when you are doing the Undercity, you have certain bonuses and things like that. You have when you do the world boss, you have a chance to earn extra boss keys. So they more affect your gameplay. There isn't really much to talk about when it comes to how do these impact our builds. You choose to corrupt them or purify them. The purify side gives you a buff. So here's what we would be looking for in terms of, the things that give us actual damage increases. I'd go for, and you get all of these choices, by the way. You have to pick one for Andariel, Azmodan, etc. So for Andariel, I would go for Essence of Anguish to be purified. This gives us movement speed, 30%, very significant. Azmodan, I would go for Essence of Sin for 20% increased armor. Belial, I would go for Purifying the Essence of Lies to fortify 1% of your max life a second. And Duriel, I would go for the Essence of Pain, briefly gain maximum barrier after becoming injured every 20 seconds. Now, like I say, this sounds very light because there isn't really much to talk about. It's not that exciting. Okay, so now let's talk about the Paragon Board. And of course, this is a leveling build, so don't stress too much about, filling out all 5 boards and getting all of your points and stuff. Just use this to the point you need to. Get to Torment, farm the bosses, farm your boss keys, get all the good gear, get the mythics, and then get some like pumper endgame build. But this will definitely help you get there. It's going to help you farm bosses, farm the pit, all that stuff. So what do? We start here with this board. We get both sides. We go down the middle. We put Bane in the middle. Bane is just pure poison. Increased poison damage for every 5 strength you get. Poison damage effects have 50% chance you'll double damage over time. Really good. Get all of the things in here to increase your strength as well, because that will buff that node. Then coming into next, we go for Bitter Medicine. We drop in the consumption here. For every 5 int, your pestilent swarms deal increased damage. We have tons that affect our pestilent swarms, so that's really, really good. And you deal 2% increased damage for each active swarm from any of your swarms. So getting a bunch of intelligence around here works really well too. The node itself, the Bitter Medicine, when you heal for 100% of your max life, afflict close enemies, dealing poison damage. It's just another source of poison damage. There's loads of really good stuff in here, such as attack speed. We've got damage to close enemies, and we've got increased damage. Coming out of here to the third board, I would go for Drive, and I would go for Turf. So you can see here we have, where's the node go? Here it goes. We have Turf here for every 5 strength. You deal increased damage to close targets. Most of the time, we're going to be dashing into packs, so that's good. And we get 10% damage reduction against those targets too. the node itself, after moving 10 meters, you deal 6% increased damage for 10 seconds. This can stack up to 10 times. So essentially 60% damage increase. This is a very, very fast build. There's a build that darts around the screen, so you're going to feel that. There's lots of other good stuff here. Dodge chance, max life, some stuff up here, damage, and down here we have vuln damage. All work really well. Snapping over here, and then we drop in the outmatch node. Grant bonus to all rare nodes in range. Why is that good? Because here we have increased damage, and down here we have max resource, which is really, really nice in this build when we're just dropping all of our cooldowns and moving on. Coming into the next section, you've got like attack speed down here. Down there you've got resource gen, and then on the final one I would go for vicious shield and fester. In the Fester node over here, we have for every 5 decks purchased in range, you deal increased damage with centipede skills, and there is a ton of decks to dump in. You can get up to 105 decks here, and then you've got like armor, you've got more armor up there, and then on the node itself, you do 2% increased damage for each 3% of your max life you have as a barrier. Like I say, if you do want to run this all the way, you're still enjoying it, you can get pretty tanky. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. If you have any questions, let me know down below. I hope you have a really, really successful and powerful Season 11 start. But thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.